I had dinner with a gentleman named Gary Becker about 2 years ago in Chicago, and he's a Nobel Prize winning economist. And he wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal, and he said, we don't have an income gap in America today. It's important to understand because the income gap is the big political thing. What we have is a skills gap. He said, it's like in a marketplace. You go into the marketplace or like an auction, and people with really good skills are being bid up. People, I want you, I'll hire you. And people with average skills or mediocre skills are just not really in demand. There's nobody demanding them. And what they find is that people in the bottom 80%, their average income goes up at about 3% a year. It's just pretty much the rate of increase of inflation and cost of living if they're employed, not employed. People in the top 20%, their income goes up between 11 and 25% a year. Now, if your income goes up at 25% a year, you'll double your income every 2 years and 7 months because of compounding. So you'll find that there's people on the what I call the low road who are just basically getting by, and then there's people who are constantly upgrading their knowledge. And sometimes it's only one piece of knowledge that can make all the difference in the world. But with regard to probabilities, we never know what the knowledge is. We never know whether it's going to be this, whether I pick it up in a magazine, I came here, I read a book, I listened to a program. So what you have to do is you have to be increasing the amount of knowledge that you're taking in. I use kind of like the Pac-Man model. You're going to chop, chop, chop. You're going to be keep gobbling information all the time, because you never know which piece of information will be the critical piece. There's that little line from Alice in Wonderland where there's the rabbits going, I'm late, I'm late. And Alice says, why do you run so much all the time? Why don't you relax? He said, no, you have to run this fast just to stay in place. If you want to get ahead, you have to run twice as fast. And it's the same thing with our life today. Because of the way the world is, we have to run twice as fast just to stay even, especially or to make any progress.
Imagine that we have a pool of water, and it's filled with fish. And these fish swim around, and they live off the sustenance that's in the water today. All right? But then we have a drought, and the drought comes along, and what happens with the drought was the water level is reduced. So we have less water in the lake than we had before. Now notice what has happened here is we have the same number of fish, and they're just as hungry as they always were, and they now have to swim in a smaller body of water and get the same amount of sustenance as before. This is very much a picture of our national, regional, international, global economy, is that we have more and more competition because we have more and more fish in a smaller body of water competing for the same level of sustenance. Your job is to become more and more effective competing in a far more competitive environment than has ever existed before. The average person today, because of the speed of change, believe it or not, is making more decisions in a month than their grandparents made in a lifetime. More major life-forming decisions are made in a month, in many cases, than your grandparents made in a lifetime. When your grandparents came out of school, it was just understood. You got some basic training, either college or apprenticeship. You went to work for a large company. You worked for that company for the rest of your life. Today, those days are gone forever. Today, the rate of change is the most powerful single circumstance in our life. And I say that basically the race is on. It's not a matter of whether or not you like the race. It's sort of like a law of gravity. It doesn't matter what you think about it. If you step off a 10-story building, you're going to go splat on the sidewalk, whether you believe in gravity or know about gravity, or whether gravity is particularly convenient for you. Today, the rate of change is not only accelerating, it's getting faster and faster, but it is also discontinuous in that it is breaking up and it's coming from different directions. And people can be going along doing what they're doing for a long period of time, and something will come out of left field and just knock us off the map. So what is your goal? Your goal is to get into the top 10%. Your goal is to be one of the best. A group of very successful businessmen were sitting around a table not long ago, and they were talking about success, and they'd spent many years in the subject, and they'd made many millions of dollars. And one of them summarized it by saying, success is goals, and all else is commentary. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that if you develop the ability to set goals properly and to work toward them on a regular basis, it'll do more for you than all the education, all the schools, everything that you could possibly get. Now, the subject of goals is a big subject. It's so big that they don't teach it in any of our schools. I eventually got back into university in my 30s. I took a postgraduate education, a master's degree, and I never got a single hour on goal setting. You can go through 10, 12, 15 years in our schools and never be taught what I call the master skill of success. Yet, you know something? If you look at successful people, if you study successful people, you look at their lives, you find that every single one of them, their lives went on in an average way, usually for a long time, and then suddenly they got a goal. They got a mission. They got a purpose. There was something that they wanted to accomplish, and it was very clear in their mind, and they wrote it down. And with a goal or a mission, a person will accomplish more in 1 or 2 years than the average person accomplishes in 5 or 10. Now, when I first discovered goals, I was 23 years old. I'd never heard of them before outside of sports. And what the basic education said to me was, if you have a goal, write it down, set a date for its accomplishment, make it measurable, make a plan, and get busy. So I took a piece of paper, a scrap piece of paper, I wrote down a couple of goals. What the heck, doesn't cost anything. I set a deadline, made a plan, I went out and got busy. I lost the paper. 1 month later, I had accomplished everything I'd written down. They were such ridiculous goals that I recognized that even though I didn't have a copy of the list, that the very act of setting the goal seems to activate a whole series of powers in the universe. It seems to activate your subconscious and superconscious minds. It seems to activate the law of attraction, which draws people and circumstances to you. It's the most incredible darn thing in the world that when you start to set goals, you change everything about you.
Some years ago, I worked with the Hunt Oil Company in Texas. The Hunt Oil Company was founded by H.L. Hunt, who became the wealthiest, self-made, multi-jillionaire billionaire in the world. At his peak, he owned 200 companies and had a royalty income of $3 million a day. And he was interviewed by a friend of mine on television before he died in the early 70s. And he was asked, what are the secrets to success? He said, the keys to success have only been 2 through all my life, and I will tell you what they are. He said, number 1, he said, decide exactly what it is you want and write it down and make a plan to achieve it. And number 2 is determine the price you're going to have to pay to get it, and then resolve to pay that price. Now, let me give you a quick exercise, which is my only take-home or homework exercise for our time together. I want you to take a piece of paper and write down 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months. And then ask yourself this great question. If you could only accomplish one goal on this list, but you could accomplish it within 24 hours, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on your life? Sometimes it's a financial goal, sometimes it's a health goal, sometimes it's a relationship goal. But whatever it is, put a circle around that goal, set a deadline on the goal, make a list of everything that you could think of to do to achieve the goal, and here's the kicker. Do something every day that moves you one step forward towards your major goal. My promise to you that this exercise, selecting your most important goal, making a plan, and working on it every day, will change your life in ways that you cannot imagine. It is the secret to becoming a self-made millionaire. It's the secret to great success in life.
See, when you accept yourself and you accept fear as a fact, that means that it's something that happens. It's something that you're going to experience, but it is not a force to hold you back. It doesn't have any special power other than that you give it. So you accept the fact that you are afraid, and then you move on anyhow. You move on past it, and you do whatever you've got to do. Part of what you've got to do is be your own motivator. You can't talk casually to yourself. You can't stand around and sit down. You must calm down now. No, that subconscious mind won't hear that. You've got to have a good conversation to yourself. Hey, and answer yourself, too. Don't pay these people any attention. You answer yourself. Hey, what you going to do? I'm going there and get off. All right, very good. Go in there and take care of business. You've got to talk to yourself, and you build yourself up, and you'll feel your energy level coming up, and people will feel that around you. See, now, if you go through life being afraid, people can sense that. They can pick up that fear. So that's why you've got to stand up inside yourself. I'm reminded of the little boy that was on a bus, and some bigger fellows were picking at him, you know? And so he wanted to move from by them. They were thumping him on the head. And so he stood up just to get from by them, and they would push him back down. He would stand up again. They push him back down. And he stood up again. They pushed him down, held him down. He said, you might hold me down, but I'm standing up inside myself. See, when you are not filling your life with the things that you are capable of doing. See, we all have some stuff that we've been given. And I don't think that it's optional for us to sit on what we have. See, if you're sitting on what you have, what you've been given, I think everybody's been given something to bring to the planet, that only you can do that. Only you can perform that. Only you can initiate that activity. And if you don't do that, if you're not filling in your life with your life work or your mission, then there are gaps in your life. And what we do when we're not living out our true identity, we begin to fill the gaps. We fill the holes with garbage. Alcohol, drugs, worry, self-destructive behavior. So when you begin to look at your life and you know that you're not doing what you can do because you have allowed yourself to be held captive by your fears. Now, when you don't have a true appreciation and acceptance for who you are, and you allow yourself to be immobilized by fear, what happens in the process is that you begin to abuse yourself. You begin to sabotage your life, you begin to sabotage your dreams, you begin to unconsciously work against yourself. You become your own worst enemy. So what do you do about that? Well, you begin to realize that your dream and your gifts have so much meaning and so much value for you till your hunger for them will begin to push you past the fear. Your hunger to have them will give you a special drive. As you work on yourself, as you begin to acknowledge your true identity, the true power that you have, the true capacity you have to bring about change, the miracle-working power that you have within yourself to do the things that you want to do. When you take them on,